What's up, Temple? What's up, Philly? What's up, world? Welcome to Philly Famous Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Holdsman. The show highlights Philly's most dynamic creators and leaders, and we've featured both legends and up-and-comers from the worlds of sports, music, business, and activism. You can learn more about the podcast, including the 85-plus episodes that we published on our website at phillyfamouspodcast.com. My guest today is the bass guitarist and vocalist for the Philly rock trio, Ill-Fated Natives. The group creates a blend of gritty blues, hard rock, and smooth jazz to captivate the mind and stimulate the soul. They marry hard-hitting live instrumentation with musical elements of hip-hop artists such as Travis Scott and Kanye West to deliver an unforgettable and in-your-face listening experience. Before I introduce my guest, here's a clip from their music video from their song, That Don't Mean. It's my pleasure to welcome on Palmtree Charmelus from Ill-Fated Natives to Philly Famous Podcast. All right, I want to welcome on Palmtree Charmelus to Philly Famous Podcast. Where'd the nickname come from?
Oh man, okay. I have an obsession with palm trees. It's actually really important to my culture. I'm Haitian, and in Haitian culture, palm tree is like a symbol of independence. And then in other cultures across the world, palm tree is like a symbol of wealth, of victory over evil, of, just power and, paradise. So just the palm tree. I've got palm trees tatted on me. It's just kind of a...
You gave yourself the nickname?
Yeah.
All right. So people call you Betts or Palmtree?
They call me Betts. Nobody ever calls you by your nickname when you give yourself the nickname, like...
Where does Betts... Is Betts your real first name?
No. So my full first name is Betzaleel. Betzaleel. It's a Hebrew name.
Wow.
It's a biblical name. So
Haitian with a Hebrew name.
Yeah. It's the French spelling of a Hebrew name. So
So you play bass guitar for Ill-Fated Natives.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And you guys were once called And the Nameless.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Where does that? Why did the name change?
Okay. All right. Let me try to think of an interesting way to tell this story. I've told it a million times. So. Anthony and I, the guitarist of Ill-Fated Natives, we both went to Central.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Central.
268, 274. If you didn't go to Central, you won't get the reference.
Yeah, everybody who does will, so that's cool. That's all that matters. So we went to Central together, and when we graduated, we found out that we both played like instruments just a little bit before graduating. So I used to go play in his garage, honestly, just me and him. And then one day he was just like, yo, my friend raps, like, we should just all three just make music together. So the three of us decided to link up, make music together. Then we decided to become a band, which was And the Nameless. And then we were a band for a little while. We picked up a lot of pieces along the way. One of those pieces was Joey. And we met Joey at the Arts Garage, which doesn't exist anymore. But we were at a gig. And then that band, And the Nameless, kind of just fell apart. But Joey was like, yo, I think we should keep playing. So the three of us decided to keep playing, and we created Ill-Fated Natives.
And why that name?
Yeah. These are good questions. Honestly, at first we were just kind of shooting names around. It was like me and O just like over the course of a few days, just like shooting names around that kind of we felt like worked, like just played really, really well in the ear. And then when we landed on Ill-Fated, there were like a lot of duds. But when we landed on Ill-Fated Natives, it just felt really right. And it's like incredibly balanced. It's 3 letters, 5 letters, 7 letters, so it kind of makes a triangle. And that's our shape, like there's 3 of us. So we
I didn't even think about any of that.
Yeah. It goes deep, yeah. And even the words themselves, there's almost an awareness to the name of the band. So I think that like nowadays it's very easy for a producer to come and have their MIDI and just hit a button, and now they can bring up, you know, 1 million bass guitars, 1 million guitarists, 1 million different types of drums, and them by themselves are a band. So coming together as three individuals, as three men who have our own opinions, our own creative ideas, and trying to figure out something that works. It's not easy, and it's kind of going the way of the dinosaur. So it's ill-fated in a sense. But because that's where it started, it's also native, you know, to music. That's how people used to come together and make music. It wasn't isolated to one person. So ill-fated natives just kind of is indicative of like, yeah, we know that this way of making music is not as popular anymore. But it's what we decide to do, and this is what we want to commit to.
Well, it's definitely an attention grabber.
Yeah.
You know, so I've actually I've never been at one of your shows in person, but I've read a lot about what it's like to be at one of your shows. But I want to hear it from you. Can you describe the experience of being in the audience at one of your live shows?
I cannot, because I've never been in the audience during one of our shows, but I can describe what it's like being on stage. I mean, it's freeing. It's like flying, honestly. I think that it's important to have a space. I think it's important for everybody to have a space where they can be their full selves. And sometimes being your full self is being unsure, and not knowing what your full self is, but having the space to explore. And every time that we hit the stage, even for that brief hour and a half long space, this space we claim as our own, and we can just kind of do whatever we want. And I think that the number one thing that I hear from people after the show is just like, wow, like, you guys encouraged us. You know, you guys encouraged. I've had people come up to me and be like, yo, I saw you guys play a month ago and I quit my job. Like, you know, and like, I just decided to follow my dream. Yeah. It's more of like an encouragement thing. It's like when people see us doing our thing, they're like, dang, like I can really like do that. You know, I can do that. And I don't have to worry about like, you know, just because like seeing them do their thing and be so free and so powerful in this space makes me empowered to do my thing. So it's encouragement and empowerment. And I think that's like probably the number one thing that I hear from people and what I want to bestow. Like when we're performing, that's what I want people to walk away with.
Is it true that sometimes you guys play without a set list?
Yeah. Sometimes we like come up with the set list like right before
on the spot.
Show. Yeah. Like we're kind of working it out. Yeah. Sometimes we have an idea of what we want to do, but I think our music is very conversational, and it's very dependent on the people who are in the crowd. So if I were to come in with a set list already decided, it's almost like it becomes like this like cage almost.
You feel boxed in?
Yeah, a little boxed in, and it doesn't allow the audience to have input like in what, because we're just as much as like they're here for us, we're there for them, you know. So it gives it the space for them to just kind of like affect us and be like, oh yeah, we haven't played this song in like years, but whatever, let's do it, you know. So we kind of leave it open.
No, I was gonna say that you really can't understand what kind of music you guys make until you watch your videos, but now I'm thinking you probably can't understand until you're actually at one of your shows. But I mean, I have seen the videos, and it's like it's an intense experience.
Yeah,
something like I've never seen before.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so based off the videos that you've seen, what kind of music would you say like that we do? Because that's always a hard question for me to answer.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the way I described it in the intro was like gritty blues, hard rock, and smooth jazz. Yeah. But there's definitely like a hip hop element in there.
Absolutely.
And the biggest influence that I notice is Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Is that what most people say?
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the other musical influences?
Oh man, there are so many. I like specifically for myself, I can lean to so many artists like Little Richard, Howlin' Wolf, Albert King, just a lot of like people in that world, the rock world. But then there are artists like Lupe Fiasco, who's been a huge like impact, has a huge impact on my writing and storytelling, and like Jay Electronica, Jay-Z, just a lot of artists who are like in the hip hop world and do that. And then even more contemporary artists like Uzi or Travis Scott, and, you know, like Kanye, like they have like a major influence on like the types of sounds that we use and the soundscapes that we try to build. So it kind of becomes really hard, like, because everybody does say like, oh, you guys are like Jimmy and like you guys should do that. and we love Jimmy. He's like, we consider him Unc, you know what I mean? That's our uncle. But there are so many different styles and flavors in the mix. Like, there are times that we'll go out and play like a show out in like the sticks, like out, you know, in like Pencil Tucky, you know, like just out there, you know, there's like a lot of white people, and like we'll just be playing trap music the whole way, you know, just rocking out. We'll pull up playing trap music and everybody's like looking like, who is that? And when we get on stage, we like, everybody kind of assumes that we rap. So when we get on stage and we pick up our instruments and we just like rock and we rage, there people are just kind of like mind blown. But everything has its place in like the context of what we do.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in a city that's so known for and passionate about hip hop, rap, R&B, what kind of response do you get when you know you're this black rock group?
Yeah. So in the early days, it was like people. I don't think people knew what to make of us. Honestly, they kind of were like we would walk, because first it was almost impossible to like really bill us. It was like the right way, and you know, when you're breaking into the industry, like nobody really knows you. So, you know, if we're getting booked for a show, it's like 12 rap artists, 6 like R&B singers, and then ill-fated natives, you know? So like people are in this space where they're like listening to rap, you know, coming over the speakers, like just a DJ dropping the beats, and like R&B singers. And then we come on, we just play just like rock, you know? And people are just kind of like, whoa. But I think what's really cool about what we're able to do is that it kind of like connects on a really deep level. And there's no, like, you don't really need to have this, I guess, foundational knowledge of like this, like old rockers or whatever, to really feel what's happening. So it kind of registers in a really cool way. So early on, people had no idea what to make of us.
How do you want to be billed?
Honestly, like, I think that's a good question.
Or is it even important that you are billed as something specific? Because like you said, you don't want to be caged in or boxed in.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, I think that we shine best when we're sharing like bills with people who are also very unique in their own way, and like have a crazy impact. So we've like, when we put our own shows together, we book R&B artists, we book rock bands, we book, you know, cover bands, we book like all like this broad range, because it's not necessarily, genres like don't even really make sense anymore these days. They don't really make sense. It's more so about how does this act connect to the audience? How do they connect to us? And if it just makes a lot of sense, then, you know, we don't have to really think about, okay, let's make sure we're all in the same genre. It's just more of a vibe.
Well, what audience do you think your music is geared towards?
Okay, so I just did this exercise in putting together 4 different types, like personality type psychographics of people that come to an ill-fated show. And I kind of broke it down this way. We've got the live music fanatics, so people who just kind of want to come see a live show.
We'll try anything.
Yeah, we'll try anything. And it just so happens that we're putting on a live show that they're like, oh, that's cool. Then we have people who are nostalgic. And there are people who are nostalgic for a time that they lived through, and there are people who are nostalgic for times that they didn't even live through, but who are kind of like, those are the people who are like, oh, I was born in the wrong era, you know, like, and I missed like the 70s, and people who fall within that range, they kind of love coming to our shows as well. Then we have the people who relate to the band, and these are the people who are like black artists, who are entrepreneurs, who are dreamers, who are working a 9-to-5 but want to do something else, and they see us doing our thing and they're like, oh no, like, you know, I'm with it. You know?
Inspired.
Yeah, I'm inspired, and like, you guys are triggering this thing in me, and it's making me really relate to you. So these different schemas of people, they kind of all come together in the show, and like, you'll find that like after we play, when we get off stage, they kind of are all talking to us, and their stories are all the same but different. And I think that's like, those are the type of people that we tend to target and we try to look for. And it makes it really, there's like a connection that happens when they come to our shows. and it's like really, really like powerful.
So you're representing right now your band.
Yeah.
You were a little bit hesitant
Which
about
is
doing
hard
that.
to do, yeah. It's so hard to do,
about breaking
yeah.
off from your group for this interview. What is the chemistry like within the group, both on stage and off stage?
A brotherhood, 100% brotherhood. We like always we have very, very different perspectives. Our approach to things can be very, very different, but we kind of always seem to want the same end goal. And because our upbringings are so different, like we have just different backgrounds. A lot of times when they're asked the question, I have an idea how they're going to answer it, and then they don't answer it in that way, and it makes me learn something. So I kind of, whenever we have the opportunity to interview together, it makes us all shine in a great way. So that's why I was hesitant at first. I'm like, I don't know, because it's kind of you really can't speak for other people and like what they have to say, and you know their voice and even the way that they say things is completely different from the way that I speak.
Are you the only first generation American in the group?
Yeah.
What did your parents are Haitian?
Yeah.
What did they think about when you first said I'm going to pursue music?
They can't stand it.
No, they still can't stand it?
Still to this day, they can't stand it. They're waiting for me to get a real job, you know, according to them. And actually, I've actually been full time in music for the past, in a few days it's going to be a year. I've been doing this full time, and they're still kind of just like, well, we're waiting for you to go back, you know. And it's not, no fault to them. It's just kind of they were programmed in such a way that you come to this country, you get a job, you get a house, find a wife, have some babies, and that's like
entrepreneurship isn't in the cards.
Not really. I mean, it is in a way, but it comes secondary to all of the rest of that stuff. And you need to, and following your dreams is just, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like you can't, like that doesn't even register.
Well, for you to do this full time, it means that you guys have built a little bit of a following. Has that been difficult though over the last, was it been 5 years?
Building a following?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually August is going to make 6 years since our first show. So we've been a band for probably 6.5, but 6 years since our first show, we'll call it. Yeah, I mean, it has been difficult, but it also hasn't been. And I say that because there are periods of time where obviously we live in, social media generation. So everybody's like comparing themselves to everybody else. So you see people who are doing things who are like in the same industry as you, but they're younger or whatever, and they're much further along, or that's what you think, they're much further along. And it's kind of like, wow, I wish that I had the following that they had. And why isn't my following there? But at the same time, you can never ever compare your story to somebody else's. Like it really just doesn't even make logical sense to do that, because you don't know the burdens that they've had to carry and the sacrifices that they had to make that you wouldn't even be willing to do. So it's been easy because all we're doing is just doing what we're here for. We're just here to make music. So all we've been doing is just making music, and we just kind of look up and people are following us like, oh, this is really cool. And it's really like, it's encouraging to be like, I'm just doing this thing that I just thought was dope. And then all of a sudden 2 other people were like, oh, this is dope. And they wanted to be a part of it. Now we're a band and we're just kind of doing our thing. And then all of a sudden there are people supporting us. And it makes it really cool.
And it's got to be cool that there really aren't any other groups, especially in Philly, doing what you guys are doing. Yeah. So when you're comparing to other people, they're not you.
Yeah.
There's really no one to compare you guys to.
Yeah, for sure.
Over the last 5 years, can you take me through some of the peaks and valleys of the journey?
Yeah.
Highlights, lowlights?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the biggest highlights is just kind of like us really deciding to do it. Like there's like the decision to like, okay, we're a band and we're gonna like play shows on Fridays, Saturdays, and maybe record an album like when we can, but then like there was a moment where we just decided like, no, we're gonna do this, and it was the best decision that we've ever made, in my opinion. And that was actually the day that Joey told us that he was gonna have a son. So we were like, all right, either we're doing this or
This isn't time.
Yeah. So that also kind of weaves in like the day that I realized that my godson was coming into the world. It was probably one of the best days ever. And then, you know, there were always with this story, there's always times where like you travel, you know, 3 hours, 3.5 hours for a gig, and you're, you know, out all day and you don't have $2 in your pocket to go buy food. And, you know, at the end of the night, like everybody walks home with maybe $10, you know, and that's happened. And, you know, there's been times where we've performed, you know, here in Philly, and like people don't know who we are, so it's just kind of like, yeah, you guys are gonna go on next, and then somebody else goes on. Oh, you guys are gonna go on next, and somebody else. And now it's 3 a.m. and I've got class the next morning, like at 8, and I've just been at this venue for forever, and now we have to pack up all our stuff and leave.
But you have performed at some pretty substantial venues, right? At South by Southwest,
for
Firefly.
Sure. Firefly, yeah.
Were those some of the highlights?
Yeah. Those are huge highlights for sure. And you know, all of these things, they just kind of add context to the story, you know. And it makes like those moments where like, you know, we like, especially early on when we'll play a show and maybe there's 10 people in the crowd. They like make the moments where we're at Firefly and like being driven around, and there's like, you know, VIP sections, and people are just like, oh, you guys are performing, you know. And like I've had high school friends, like especially for the Firefly thing, they hit me up like, yo, is this your band like performing, you know. They make those moments so much sweeter. So yeah,
the lows make the highs
yeah,
better.
the lows make the highs like that much sweeter for sure.
What pivots have you guys made, either from a business standpoint or a musical standpoint, in you know, over the course of the journey?
For sure. So when we released our first EP, Savages, we had no idea what we were doing. None at all. We were just kind of like, all right, let's just like find a studio, record some music. So over the course of 2 days, we recorded those 7 tracks, and they're long tracks. They're like 5-minute, 6-minute, like rock journeys. Some of them are like jazz journeys, and just kind of, there's a lot of like textural, like really interesting things that we've done with that project. But we were just kind of doing whatever. For this next album that we're getting ready to come out with, and that we've been in the studio with, we decided to focus and kind of like, yo, let's take these songs that we know are really good, find the best parts of them, and just make them as impactful as possible so that they're like a gut punch. So that decision came before we realized what the album was going to be. That came like, I'd say maybe 1.5 years ago, when we decided that we wanted to find a way to get our message across like quicker and just stronger.
What is that message?
We're really here to educate. So I think that's like the base level. So it's really trying to bring people together around this idea that we as just a species can come together, and we have way more power than we think that we have. So it's just teaching people like, hey, like look at what we're doing. We're able to do this because we realize like we don't have to follow these rules. We have the agency to move how we want to move, and you can do it as well.
Because your music videos do contain some real pointed political commentary.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty common theme for you guys.
For sure, it can be. Yeah, definitely.
So what frustrates you most about the music industry?
I don't know where to start. I was having this conversation this morning. I think today, one of the biggest things that I like that bothers me is people who have no idea what, like they wouldn't know what was cool in the culture, even if it came up and smacked them in the face. Being the gatekeepers.
These
like
people in the high levels of the industry.
These people they're the high levels, they're the gatekeepers, you know, they're making the decisions, they're deciding what's cool. And because they have no idea, like they're not from the culture, so they don't know how to dictate it, they don't know what it's saying, they don't know how to package it. They're just kind of looking for certain metrics, and those are gonna be the end all be all. So they're allowing certain, I'll say, characters to come in into these spaces and take up spaces from people who are truly representative of the culture, who are really like artists, who are really doing some very, very cool, inventive things. But because there are these gatekeepers speaking on behalf of the culture who are not from the culture, there's this massive disconnect.
Are you seeing that change in any way, in a positive way?
I mean, it is. I think it is. I think the internet is like making it very, very like obvious when you have like certain people come and sit down and open their mouth, and now people are checking them like, wait, this doesn't make sense. So the internet is making it obvious, but also the internet it's a double-edged sword. So it's also making the problem worse, because it's like people are now gearing their entire their promotional pushes. Everything is less based on the art and more based on like, how do I hit these metrics to get these gatekeepers to notice me? So it's good and bad.
How would you characterize the music scene in Philly?
It's diverse. Philly it's probably the most talented, like musically creative place that I've ever been to, ever. And like, I've been to a lot of different cities, but it's just,
even Atlanta?
I'd say more so than Atlanta, honestly. I think that what's happening here in Philly is so dynamic. Like, you can go to a show and see like punk rockers still doing their thing, but you can go to, another part of town and R&B people and singers and like artists are just it's a very, very cool, creative community that's really like on the cusp of bubbling up.
I keep hearing everyone say that. Like,
it is.
Philly in the next 5 years is going to be over Atlanta, and it's going to be like the hub of the creative music industry.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. There's a lot of cool things that are happening right now that, like, if you're a part of it, you can kind of see these things kind of coming, and because you're a part of it, you're just kind of like, oh, that's cool, and you kind of leave it. But a couple years down the road, you'll be like, oh, I remember seeing that when it was like just here, and now it's like skyrocketed.
How did you begin working with David Ivory, who was the engineer for The Roots?
Yeah.
Speaking of Philly music.
Right, DI. So David O throws this yearly like PHL live contest. It's like trying to find the best music talent in the city across different genres, and it's kind of like a competition that they throw, and it's a battle of the bands almost. So a few years ago, we were part of the rock genre, and the three judges were Brett Porsche from WMMR, Tommy Jones, I don't remember his last name, but Tommy from Milk Boy, I see him all the time, and David Ivory was one of the judges. So we performed, and after we hit, DI just came up to us, he's like, yo, like, we should work. And we made that happen. We just like went up to the studio and we worked together.
How was that?
Yeah, it was very, very, like, we learned a lot.
Was it eye-opening?
Yeah, he knows so much. He knows so much, and we really, really learned a lot from him, for sure.
All right, Betts, I want to thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This has been a lot of fun. We actually are going to continue with a little more of the interview, but that's it for this episode of Philly Famous Podcast on TUTV. If you want to listen to the rest of the interview, it's going to be on our YouTube channel just by searching Philly Famous Podcast, on our website at phillyfamous.com. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keeping it going.
Yeah, let's go.
Betts, if there was a movie made about your life, what's the one scene from the film that absolutely cannot be left out for people to fully understand really who you are as a person?
Okay. The one scene that cannot be left out. I think it would have to be the moment that, honestly, the moment that the three of us decided to be a band. So like that happened at Legendary Dobbs down on South Street. We played our first song ever, and that moment when I realized, like, whoa, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
Things clicked for you.
Yeah, this is what it's supposed to feel like when you're doing the thing that you should be doing. And I hadn't ever felt that before. Like, I kind of felt a feeling that was similar to that with the other band, but when it was just the three of us just going on all cylinders, it just made a lot of sense. And that's when I decided, okay, boom, like this is what I want to do. I want to write music. I want to be a musician. I want to be an artist. I want to be a writer. Like I just, this is what I should be doing. And nothing else, if it doesn't give me this feeling, I shouldn't be doing it. So it kind of defined like everything that I do, from relationships, from friendships, like from that point on. So that moment, I would say that had to be it.
What were you doing prior to that?
Just, you know, whatever seemed cool, I guess. Like whatever, like people, you know, were like saying like, yeah, this is what, you know, let's go to parties, and like you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And like music kind of was just a little part of what it is that I was doing.
Now it's number one.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, artistry, I'd say for sure is number one. Yeah.
How has growing up in Philly and living in Philly for your whole life, no?
I was born in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born in New York. I moved here when I was like 10. So I grew up
from
here,
10
basically.
on,
Yeah.
How has that experience of living in Philadelphia helped to shape you as a man?
I say the number one thing is Philly is very interesting because we have the toughest love. You know, it's like it takes a little while for us to warm up to people who are not from around here or who are coming in, but once you do, like you're in. That's it. And I think I've adopted that when I like am moving through these spaces and I'm meeting new people. I'm kind of distant and I'm just very observant, just paying attention to see how they move. But the minute I decide like, all right, boom, like this person is like in, then there's like a loyalty there. And I think that like is one of the most important things for me. It's like being loyal to people that you've accepted into your circle, no matter what. Like as like if you could check them, you know. And if you have to like, I like try to connect people, even though I don't get like if there's no financial like recourse for me or anything like that. If I know two people within my circle are gonna work really well together, out of the loyalty for both of them, I'm like, yo, you guys should really make this happen. And I'll go out of my way to make that happen. And I think that's like a very Philly thing to do. It's just very much like, oh, I rock with you. Y'all should just get together because I know you guys are gonna like work really, really well together. And I don't even have to be a part of it.
No, yeah, we have a way about us where we have a need for people to prove themselves before we adopt them into our family.
For sure.
And that's where I think brotherly love comes from.
Yeah.
It's in a family. It's not easy. You got to prove yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where that loyalty comes from.
Yeah, and also, you know, brotherly love. I was gonna say this about the band being brothers. We have like a lot of fun with one another. We also like come for each other like a lot. We'll like roast each other like pretty hard, you know.
Good natured.
Yeah. And it's because, you know, it's a very Philly thing too. There's you have to have a thick skin because this world is not necessarily gonna coddle you. So you have to like, it's almost like the lion cubs like training in, you know, for the hunt with each other, just kind of toughening each other up. So when you step outside, like you're ready and you're just kind of ready to go.
What would you say your favorite thing about Philly is?
Favorite thing about Philly? I really can't pin it down to one thing, man. I think that like, because I'm so close to it, I'm gonna say like the creative community, for sure. It's just it's so inspiring, and it sometimes it can be annoying, but for the most part, it's just like it just makes me proud to be from here.
You're wearing a shirt that says "Rock is Black Culture."
Yes.
What's that all about?
So the entire month of February, we did a campaign, the Rock is Black Culture campaign. And what we did was every day we posted what we called a black rocker, or somebody who influenced the genre of rock and roll, or really influenced us specifically, that people might not know about. And these people like from history and, you know, even more contemporary artists. And we thought it was important to do that because one thing that we get a lot from people when we play is like, oh, it's so cool that you guys are like black guys like doing rock music. And for the three of us, we're like, well, you know, black people helped invent rock music. You know, we were incredibly like everybody who you think that is like foundational to creating rock, from Elvis to Rolling Stones to Ramones to Led Zeppelin, all of these acts reference black artists as their inspiration. And that's kind of erased.
Why do you think that's not more commonly known?
it's been erased, honestly. I think it's kind of easy for people to like, these acts kind of exploded with this music, and like it's been like, even though a lot of them were like, yo, yeah, we got, oh yeah, like I got this from Muddy Waters, I got this from Howlin' Wolf, and if you ask them, but that narrative doesn't really play well when you're interviewing like somebody, because then they have to go, oh, well, now I have to interview Howlin' Wolf, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, it was like, no, like this is a Led Zeppelin thing. This is like, yeah. So it kind of, there was at some point, and I think, like I'm not really sure why, but at some point there was a divergence where Black people kind of stopped being associated with rock. And like blues has always been our thing, but we stopped being associated with, and we stopped associating ourselves with it as well. And like years down the line, it was just kind of like, oh, that's a white people thing. But it really isn't. And that's why Rock is Black Culture, we decided we wanted to do that, because it's about education, letting people know like, yo, like we are very much a part of this as anybody else, you know?
Do you hope to bring rock more into the Philly music culture?
Yeah, that would be cool. It's not, I wouldn't say that that's like a goal of mine necessarily. I think that's something that's just gonna kind of end up happening. If you look at the mainstream artists now, like from the Uzis to Denzel Curry, I don't know if you saw this, just did a cover of Bulls on Parade.
I didn't see this.
Oh, it's amazing. It's really good. But like artists now, from the Uzis to Travis Scott, Denzel Curry, like these artists now are referencing rock melodies, rock energy, rock approaches. It's just kind of something that like now black artists are like, yeah, I'm a rock star. And now that saying, it comes with a lot of weight. And now more Black people who are interested in diving into music are immediately going to be like, well, what does that even mean? Like Uzi had an interview with Nardwuar, and he referenced Gigi Allen, and he referenced like Marilyn Manson. Like he's just referencing, like he's making these references that people who are like interested in Uzi are gonna look back and be like, oh, what does that mean? And see like, oh, okay. So I think that automatically, like the way the direction this thing is going, rock music is starting to become in the fold for Black people more and more naturally. So I wouldn't say that as a goal of ours to make rock music like, yeah, more accepted in Philly. It's just kind of one of the things that's just gonna end up happening.
So that's not one of your direct goals, but so what kind of is your 5-year plan here?
Honestly, I think that we want to tell stories. We want to tell the stories of the people who can't tell the stories themselves. We want to tell our own story. And that's going to come in a lot of different ways. So one of our biggest goals over the course of the next 5 to 10 years is to create like a full range multimedia production, house where we're telling these stories through photo, through video, through the music, just all together.
All under Ill-Fated Natives.
Yeah, and even if it's not under Ill-Fated Natives, like our our umbrella company that we run is Smoking Feather. It's just our thing. So it'd be under that umbrella, and like working with these artists that we work with today, just to even tell the stories that they want to tell, and just kind of support it with music, support it with like photos and all of these things. So it's just about storytelling.
We're gonna play us out with your music video from your song 2+2.
Yeah.
Can you give me the backstory to that video?
Yeah, to the video.
Or to the song? Both?
I mean, yeah, both of them are just kind of linked. So we had 2+2 as a song. Anthony wrote that song, and it just kind of like was one that we kind of busted out a couple times during sets. And it was just one of the songs that we had. It wasn't recorded or anything like that. But then the day that Donald Trump won the election, I called Anthony. I was like, yo, we have to release this song. Like everything that and not only do we have to release it, I want to release this song the day he's putting his hand on the Bible and, taking the office. And so that only gave us a few months to like put it all together, like the song and the video, and just like go find a studio, record it, blah, blah, blah. And it just is such a high octane song that we knew we needed it, because in that time, especially now too, but especially when he was being put into office, a lot of people that we knew that we were close with were scared, and a lot of people that we knew were angry, and I wanted to give people some kind of like a way to direct that in a purposeful way. So we, in like 2 months, we recorded the whole thing, put the video together with my man Ren. He put the video together, and he just found clips like, and just kind of made shout outs to a lot of fallen soldiers. And we put the piece together and released it on that day. So it just it came together really well, and a lot of people were just like, "Yo, thank you."
You had a good response to it.
Yeah, thank you for putting this out.
There was very few words, right? It was a lot of just instrumental.
Yeah, I mean, the words that are on there are very powerful. It's just kind of, you know, will you run and hide? Will you stand and fight? You know, and it's like, again, like I said, it's explosive. Yeah.
Before we play us out and our audience gets to see that, two things. Give me your favorite place to get a cheesesteak in the city,
Yeah.
and plug anything you want for our audience.
For sure. Okay, favorite cheesesteak place. A lot of people hate me for this, but I always go with Ishka Bibbles on South Street. That's my go-to.
answer.
Yeah, I got people coming from out of town. We're going to Ishka Bibbles. And anything I want to plug, you know, follow Ill-Fated Natives on all social media. We're like this close to dropping new music, and the new music we've been working on for a while. So we're on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all of that. Just find us, Ill-Fated Natives. We've got merchandise out. Buy the merch, you know, support the band. That's it.
All right,
Yeah.
Betts, thank you so much. Like I said, a
Absolutely,
lot
for
of
sure.
fun.
Yeah.
Got 2 different clips here.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah,
And
sure.
good luck with everything, man.
Yeah, no doubt,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you.